It is mailbag time here on Falcons Today. I'm going to answer questions that came in during our live show, which airs Thursday afternoons. Mr. Haha with the $10 super chat. With Tua coming off a bad injury, chance of bad plays, and maybe Quinn Ewers being a bust in a draft, what's the likelihood of a 1-for-1 trade with the Falcons? Kirk Cousins for Jalen Ramsey. If they didn't sign Zach Wilson, I'd say it goes from 0% to a few percentage points. But they did add Zach Wilson, who, by the way, horrible jersey number choice. 0. Can't do that. This is not happening. It'd be fun, but that's a fantasy football trade. I really don't ever see that happening in all likelihood. But I still appreciate your super chat, and I like where your head's at when it comes to creativity. Archangel, who do you have getting cut out of the safety game? So can we peek at the safety depth chart real quick, Moose? Do we have that here? Let's look over the Atlanta Falcons safety depth chart, which, by the way, there's going to be some fluidity to this. Just as a couple of guys maybe switch positions, you know what I mean? Maybe they go from being a corner to a safety or vice versa. So looking at the safety room, who's most likely to get cut? Well, Bates and Watts, I think, are locks. So that leaves Fuller and DeMarco Hellams to fight off some other guys. There's a good chance they do fight them off. Jordan Fuller was signed to a very cheap one-year contract. So they're not really tied to him financially all that much. A little bit of guaranteed money, but nothing crazy. So if a UDFA or that Benny Sapp, someone else comes out and just, blows their, mind and rocks their socks off, then I could see Fuller being the last one out. If Hellams doesn't really bounce back from that ankle injury well, which I think he will, then he could be the last one out. But who do you have getting cut? I'm going to say all 4 for now make the 53-man roster. Kennard Drake, how effective will Pitts be this season? I was watching a Twitter highlight yesterday of, I think it was, what game was it? It was Pitts' first or second year, and he had this great catch. I want to say like the Bills game on the road, where he just snagged a ball from behind him and just turned upfield and started running and ran over someone. I think that Kyle Pitts is going to be what he's been the last 3 years. He's going to have a few touchdowns. He's gotten one more touchdown every single season, but I don't think he'll be a 1,000-yard guy. I think towards the end of the year, we saw Charlie Werner start to have more of a presence on passing situations in the tight end formation. So I don't think it's going to be anything more than 800 yards and 3 touchdowns or 4 touchdowns. Next question coming in. What kind of season should we expect from Michael Penix? I'm really high on Michael Penix because just coming out of Washington, he was one of my favorite quarterbacks in that draft. For reference, I think if Penix was in this year's class, he would have been the number 1 pick, and I don't think it would have been all that close. So I think Penix is going to show us a 3,800 yards, 22 touchdowns, 12 interceptions type of year. D-Fish, how do you realistically see the Falcons using Jalon Walker in the defense in his first season? So the defensive coordinator, Jeff Ulbrich, said they plan to use him as an edge, right, as an outside linebacker. I thought they would use him as an inside linebacker and then kick him out to edge on 3rd and 10, right? So you can get all of your best pass rushers on the field. Or not even kick him out to edge, but then just send him on a blitz on 3rd and 10, and you've got Floyd and Pearce coming off the edge and Walker coming up the middle. But for making the switch, he's a little bit on the smaller side for being an NFL edge rusher. I think there could be a little bit of, a learning curve to it. I could see a season where he puts up 3.5 to 4 sacks, but he still finds a lot of, valuable contributions in coverage and run stopping and just making sure everyone else is doing their job. So I think Walker may not have big wow production in year 1, but could ramp up as he gets more and more accustomed to being an outside backer full time. Let's go Dirty Birds. Could you see the Falcons trading for Kayvon Thibodeaux? So the Giants did pick up the 5th-year option on their former top 5, top 6 draft pick out of Oregon. He had a really strong sophomore season for the G-Men, 11.5 sacks, 12 tackles for loss. Last year, a little bit of a step back, 5.5 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, but he did miss some time, so while availability is important, fair to say that had he played 17 games, he'd probably be closer to 9 sacks, which, listen, you don't have to always have more than you had the year prior to still be a good player. I don't think the Giants are really kicking the tires on a Kayvon Thibodeaux trade. They picked up his fifth-year option, so any team trading for him has to absorb that fully guaranteed contract for next year. So I'd put the likelihood of a Thibodeaux trade being very low. I think they wanted to see if they could get a third for him during the draft. There were no buyers. Atlanta does not have a third, did not have a third to offer. So maybe with a third for next year's draft, the Falcons could get it done. But man, at that rate, Terry will have traded the first, third, and fifth round picks from next year. I'd say it's very low chance that Thibodeaux comes to Atlanta. Would you trade for the former top 10 draft pick by the Giants, though? Give me a Y for yes, give me an N for no in the comment section below. Let's move on to our next question. How many total sacks do you think we get this year as a team? Last year, after doing some research, the Falcons got 31 sacks. I'll say next season Atlanta gets 40 sacks. Add on 9 more sacks, right? That's an extra half a sack a game. That seems reasonable. I'm not going to go as far to say as they're going to go all the nearly 50 sacks, but with the additions of Pearce, Walker, and Floyd, and the departure of Grady Jarrett and Matthew Judon, I think that could round out as a net result of 9 more sacks. So give me 40. Before we look at the other questions from today's mailbag, if you want to get a Jalon Walker jersey or a James Pearce jersey, use this link, chatsports.com/ATL rookies. It's a great way to support the channel, and you get a Falcons jersey from Fanatics. I put this link in the comments and description of today's video. So if you want to get a brand new Atlanta Falcons jersey, don't put it off. Be the first one at your tailgate, at your friend's watch party in August for a Falcons game with a brand new Falcons jersey. Obi-Wan below me. That's a good trivia team name right there. Do you think Nick Nash will get significant snaps? No. He's a UDFA out of San Jose State. Started off as a quarterback, made the change. He was one of the better UDFA signings out there. No, and here's why. Kadiro Hodge and Casey Washington looked good in the preseason last year, and we didn't see much of them on offense. Let's not lose sight of when September gets here, it's Drake London and Darnell Mooney, and then a little bit of Ray McLeod. And those guys are going to make up, if healthy, 100% of the snaps. If someone gets injured, then the next guy up would be Casey Washington. But that is contingent on an injury. So significant, no. No, I truthfully do not. Aiden Stackhouse, if you were to predict James Pearce Jr. or Jalon Walker stats this year, what do you think they would be? I'll go with 4 sacks for Jalon Walker, and I'll say 6.5 sacks for James Pearce. For rookies, I know we're looking for more, but I think that's a good starting point right there for a guy who'd be playing a somewhat new-ish position, going to outside linebacker, and for Pearce to, get his feet wet in the NFL. 6.5 sacks in year 1, I'll take that every single day of the week. Aiden, thank you so much for your question. Next one rolling in here. Kennard Drake, what are you looking forward to return from IR? Oh, who are you looking forward to? I'm sorry. Well, DeMarco Hellams was on IR last season. Let me see who else was on IR to close out the year. Because they luckily really weren't too snake-bitten when it came to injuries. So last year to close out the season on injured reserve, the Falcons had, let's look at their IR team. DeMarco Hellams is like the first name. Braylon Trice, that's one. I'll probably lead off with Braylon Trice right now. Some other guys, Younghoe Koo, Troy Anderson, Rondale Moore's gone. Yeah, I'll go with Braylon Trice. We know nothing about this guy. So give me the 3rd-round pick from a year ago out of Washington. Dat1 Falcons fan, and then we'll round out with all the other Super Chats we've gotten so far. Tyler Allgeier and a 2026 3rd for Jalen Ramsey and a 2026 4th. I think the Dolphins are kind of set at running back. I'm just going to peek at their depth chart right now, but they drafted a running back in day 2 last year out of Tennessee, Jalen Wright. But I don't know if they feel compelled to add more running backs. They have Devon Achane, Jalen Wright, and they signed Alexander Madison and drafted Ollie Gordon. So, while they do like to run that ball, and that's in that Shanahan system, I don't think that a running back is going to be the big needle mover. Sure, adding in a 3rd helps, but probably not going to be what the Dolphins are searching for. Want to say thank you to EHYGO for sending in a $20 super chat. Very ambitious. I love where your heart is at, and I love where your positivity is stemming from. I'm not quite there with the dynasty part being dependent on a 4th round safety, but hey, I like what you're drinking, dude. AFX, why do they cut these? I don't know what they cut. I don't know. I thought this would be Falcons related. AFX, thank you for the super chat. I would go talk to your local veterinarian for this answer. I think we have 1 or 2 more super chats. We talked about Kennard Drake. P. Diddy, super chatting from behind bars. 2026 mock draft. I don't know. I'll toss out offensive tackle if they want to replace Caleb McGarry, or possibly tight end if they move on from Kyle Pitts. But I would lean towards tackle. That's just a position that goes round 1 more frequently than tight end does. Tony Romo, there will be no mailbag. This is the mailbag, Tony. I don't know, Jim. I don't know, Tony. You're watching it right now. Keep getting back to your golf game, though. That's going to do it for us on today's show. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We're going to sign off, let you get on with the rest of your weekend, and I'll see everyone later with more Falcons news and rumors.